Obviously, our biggest expense in life is our taxes, and Joe's going to kind of break it down, and he's asking everyone that wants to help appeal them to start setting up meetings with him immediately, early as next week.
As soon as possible.
He'll start meeting with everyone to help go through your appeal and see how he can help you with your evaluation. So,
We'll talk
again,
about that.
thank you, Joe.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
thank you.
It's all
Joe
yours.
Crowell, Frankfort Township Assessor. Welcome. Thank you for coming out. I'm not a public speaker, so forgive me to the beginning, more of a numbers person. But I like to do the Socratic method, which is I'm going to talk. If you have questions, raise your hand. If you hear something out of my mouth that you don't understand, it's best to let's visit that at that point. I'm going to start with a question. How many here think their property tax bill is too high? How many here think that property tax bills in general are too high? Okay, all right. Property taxes are a shared burden, meaning that your school systems, your fire department, your library, all of this create levies or budgets. And the way that they equate your portion of it is the valuation placed on your house. And it works to be a percentage, not a direct equation. So everybody who got that notice is thinking immediately in their head that their tax bill is going to get raised by that amount. That is not the case. What this is going to affect is the tax rate that is applied to your tax bill, and it's going to cause it to go down. I am not saying your taxes are not going to go up, and we will continue on after this to talk about the cause of taxes, what's causing them to rise so quickly, and what you guys can actually do to fight the tax bill that we all feel is too high. But we're going to start by people that just want to talk about appeals. And what my job is to put a value on your home, the marketability of your home over the last 3 years, an average value that you would sell your house for in an arm's length transaction. Now, many people call up today and say, listen, Joe, the value you have on my home is not what I'm going to get for it. And then I say, okay, well, let's look at the sales. And we pull up sales. And if you want to do that, you can actually go to the Frankfort Assessor website, look at your PIN number, hit the sales, Frankfort Assessor. And go to the property search, look at your PIN number, and look at the sales. We had a big situation. I talked to I think one of the leaders at the Brookside townhomes, and I valued them at $270,000. And there's a whole list of them. Everybody's sitting at $270,000. And he's like, no one's going to get that for that. And there are 7 sales in 2023 from $313,000 to $340,000. And those are the only sales that have occurred. So the reality is that it's still going up. And Tinley Park's value is still going up. It's not raising your taxes. It's just me indicating to you. Just as this is a bubble. We are in a bubble. Valuations are going up. And guess what? Valuations are going to come back down. That's not going to lower your tax bill either. Because the way they generate this is they look at the total assessed valuation of an area and they compare it to what the levy is of the taxing body. So I, as your assessor, put a value on your houses, the commercial, the industrial, and all within an area like a school district or a fire department or a park district. Those values go up. And the budget or levy of said taxing district is the number you have to compare the total assessed value to. What number do you have to multiply that by to make column A equal column C? And that's the tax rate. And truthfully, everyone's upset about tax rates. Tax rates is just a number to make this number equal this number. And the reality is that if I walked in tomorrow and I was in a really bad mood and I said, heck with all these guys, I'm doubling all your assessments, the only thing that would happen would be that the rate that they applied to equal the levy would get cut in half, just as this. So my job as assessor, putting on that value is to look at sales. The state does a sales ratio study. They look at certain factors, and the determination was that pretty much the entire township went up 9.97. That's it. It's applied to everybody, and in doing so, it's not adjusting your tax bill at all. It's going to cause the tax rate to go down. Taxes are going up, and that's a whole nother ballpark, and we'll get to that. But you have an indicator of what I value your house at with that. That is what your starting point is. Now, this opens the door for you to file an appeal. You have 30 days. You can go to the Will County Board of Review or Will County website and download this packet. And it'll give you the information you need to file an appeal. You can appeal based on one of three things. One, I just bought my house and you have it valued above what I paid for it. Okay. In that case, you bring me your closing documents and I will make sure you're at that level. Two, the sales within my area are less than what you have me valued for. And at which point you're going to show me the sales and I'm going to look at the sales that I find, and you're going to find that those sales are generally high. Three, assessment equity. Now, that is the situation where how I'm assessing Mr. Johnson as opposed to Mr. Smith that sit next to each other. Same kind of house, same style. What is the price per square foot that I'm assessing them at? And the information on how to compare that is in here. And if you want help on that, we can call the office. You're going to look towards the building on the assessment. Your assessment is broken down into three things: your land, your building, and your total. And you're going to take that building and you're going to divide it by the square footage, and that's going to give you a price per square foot. And if I'm assessing Mr. Smith at $46 a square foot and you at $48 a square foot, there's an argument. But if I'm assessing 90% of them at $48 a square foot, the argument is a little bit less to play. Any questions? No? Yes?
How far back you would go to for the seller?
3 years.
3 years, right?
3 years. 2020 less so. The closer you get towards now. 2023 isn't even in our sales study. And I'm going to start off by saying I don't understand it. I've been involved in assessments and appraising for a long time. I do not understand how interest rates can go from 2.5% to 8.5%, and people are still paying 5% more every year for a house, or 7% more. And it's insane. I'm looking at home sales going, guys that bought houses in 2018 flipping them for $100,000 more. But it's just value of your percentage of what the tax bill is. It's not what raises your tax bill. Your tax bill is, each taxing body has a ability to raise their budget or levy every year, and that's governed by a law called PTOP. And the problem, let's get the appeal done first. So you're going to file an appeal. What's the final date of the appeal?
September 11th.
September 11th. Just a date. Has to be in by then. And then we will get a copy of said appeal. We will look at it. We will have to come up with a case on why our assessment is correct, or we will stipulate to why it isn't and give you that reduction, if that's the case, if you have a case. And I will stip if you have a case. Most times not. But the idea that you're going to appeal because your property tax bills are too high, that's not a legitimate, just because they're high for you. Because if I lower Mr. Smith, that doesn't mean that the taxing body gets less money. It just means that the tax rate is adjusted up and everybody else pays. And that's where the crux of the problem is people coming in saying, well, I've got this reason or that reason that I should pay less, but that doesn't mean that the governmental body is going to take any less money for this. They're going to push that burden onto your neighbors. And my job is to make this fair. My job is to say, what you're assessed at is what you're assessed at, that if you're in a 3-step ranch, you should be be assessed the same as the three-step range here. Now, people will say, well, my tax bill is less, or this guy's tax bill is less, and this gentleman has a senior exemption, or this person has a military exemption. Illinois is pretty good at giving exemptions. And exemptions do not lower the tax burden. They just exempt certain people from that tax burden that pushes out to the rest of the neighbors. So when you hear about they're going to expand this exemption, or we're going to give exemptions, the people that don't get the exemptions are going to pay more because of those exemptions being issued. So if you don't get that exemption, just remember that next time people in politics come say, we're going to solve property taxes by making exemptions higher. It doesn't do anything, it just pushes the burden out. In fact, that's one of the things that's sitting on the governor's desk is to increase the homestead exemption to $8,000. Okay. All that does is push the tax rate up and doesn't solve anything. Everybody that has a homestead exemption, I mean, as long as they live in their home, and maybe it does affect people that are renting their homes, but that number is so small, and you know, I mean, it is an issue. It is what our political class in Illinois tends to move to. This is what's going to save us, is exemptions. When any political person comes to you and talks about helping out with property taxes, understand the only way that you're ever going to stop increasing of property taxes is if some law is put in place to maintain levies at the same level. Every time Park District decides they want more money, that money is going to get spread out amongst the community. As long as they are able to raise their levy, taxes are going to go up. And that is, you know, let's talk about PTAC. Taxing bodies are limited by a law called PTAC. Back in 1991, some state legislator people that I find much more economically, they understood economics a lot better than they do today, saw a problem. Taxing bodies throughout our area had no limit to what they could raise. All right, so one year to the next, people were watching tax bills jump up 15%, 12%. You want to build a new library, you can do this. So some very smart state senators and legislatures back in 1991 instituted the law PTAC, Property Tax Extension Law Limiter. What does that mean? They took a number that is generative of inflation called CPI, Consumer Price Index. It's a gallon of gas, a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, all these numbers put together, and they compare where they went from A to B. Now, up here on the screen is the history from 1991 till now. That is where those numbers are. 2.9 in 1992, 2.7, 1.5, 1.6. In 2005, it went to 3.4, and even in 2007, it actually topped at 4.1. But then the next year, it followed out by 0.1%. So all taxing bodies could only raise that amount on their levies the next year. Now, unfortunately, where we are now is here, where last year's inflation number hit 7. And that state senator or state representative who decided to put or 5%, which is ever lower, on that bill, I like to thank him. I mean, the fact that he put that 5% on there limited every single taxing body at that 5%. And you'll notice that that number sits here, and that next year they've already announced it's going to be 5% again, which means that every taxing body this November or December, when they decide their tax levies, are going to make a decision. Now, I know the village here did 3.5, which 3%. In our area, in your area specifically, which is 161, they went the full 5. Lincoln Way went the full 5, and Lincoln Way will get to that also. Everyone says, but Joe, my tax bill went up more than 5%. Well, yes. In the case of all of Frankfort Township, we sit within Lincoln Way. And we pay for what happened in the past. And when they passed the referendum for building the Lincoln Way schools, they put a little caveat on there that they could go back in and pull money out. And they did in 2012 to buy land for a fifth school in Manhattan. And they I don't know why, they didn't really need 4 even at that point. They reorganized the debt, and they were basically paying just the interest in the beginning, and now we are paying on the principal. So for Lincoln Way North, which is now closed, we owe $500 million. Can't walk away from it. I mean, that's what we as voters voted for, and it is closed. It's used by Park District a little bit. It has to go, the bonds require that whoever takes it over is a governmental body. You can't sell it to somebody. People have said, well, it could be a college. No. Colleges, when they want an offshoot, want a 4-room building and an office. They don't want a sports facility or a gym or this. There has been some talk of the police, and somebody said that may come up again. I don't know, but that would be a question for your state senators or state representatives. If they took off, if that fell off the books, that would definitely help. But that accounted for about a full % of your tax bill was the debt obligation on the Lincoln Way North, Lincoln Way West purchase.
Joe.
Yeah.
And Lincoln Way also bought the 77 acres at 191st in Harlem a long time ago, and it cost them millions.
Oh, yeah.
And then now the village has bought that property because they can't sell it to anyone for 1.5 million, and then we turned around and sold it for 1.7. We are very close to inking a deal with two businesses that could possibly bring in, they're estimating about 150 million a year in sales tax. And then also
And valuation too,
Yeah.
which,
And
believe
so
me,
that would help
if
all
you
you
can start
guys.
bringing in more businesses and the taxing bodies don't take that on as new construction, but take that on as settling into the fold to settle their levy. I mean, that's part of the problem is that you build a subdivision of houses, those need teachers. And 70% of our tax bill is schools. And the philosophy behind it is that, yes, you build a subdivision, the schools should get that in addition to what their levy is. But when you build a Kohl's or you build a store, that should fold in to help the residents satisfy their levy, satisfy their portion of the levy. And putting a business like that would be fantastic.
And that's why we bought it.
Right, I believe, and I have it in Manhattan where they bought the land for the fifth school. They've actually owned a piece of land just like they did here because they bought the land down there, they bought this land. In 2012, and they didn't have an appraisal. If you guys remember 2012, that was after the market crash. Nobody could figure out what land was or what values were. And I think they sold that land later, 5-6 years later, for less money than they purchased it.
And that's
in
what happened to this
2012.
one.
Yeah.
They spent a ton, and we
Right.
bought it cheap because it's filled with peat, it's filled, there's waterway problems, there's Army Corps issues that we're working through, but
Well, you're gonna have to, any parking lot, like when they're gonna do the grocery store, it has to be raised up, and you're gonna have to have a raised parking lot. It'll be interesting to see how it gets developed. That comes to referendums. What is a referendum? You see them on the ballot all the time. I personally walked in, and I know this is gonna sound bad, in October and early November, and we as a group knocked on thousands of doors and tried to say, listen, we handed out pamphlets talking about Will County mental health. And the amount of people said, well, we need mental health. Well, we have a Will County Health Department. There is a mental health division. If you want to fund that more, that's great. But what you're asking for in this referendum is to create a brand new taxing body. And I'll tell you how disheartening it was to actually have it pass everywhere through here. It's as if we name something, Save the Puppies, And everyone's like, oh, you gotta save the puppies. And mental health is an important issue. But what are you gonna do with the money you collected? And how is that going to help mental health? Would be my questions. And I would ask that before voting for it, but it passed. How much is it gonna cost? They still have not made a decision on what they're going to charge per 100,000 for this brand new taxing body. So next year when you look on your bill, there's gonna be a brand new line, Will County Mental Health. And I don't know, when I was here last time, I said, the problem is we keep voting for these issues to, one, bypass PTA, because every time you do a referendum, you're bypassing the rules already put in place so taxing bodies raise to generate more income and higher tax bills. And I keep expecting people to say, you know what, maybe no, but we do. 161 is a great school district, fantastic, one of the best and most expensive in our area, even more expensive than Frankfort. Do you know why? Because it's never failed a referendum, not once. It has passed every single one. Every time you put up a referendum that extends the limiting rate higher, you pass it. And that's why when you drive down Everett, does anyone here know where Mr. Everett Street is by Mr. Benny's?
Yep.
Okay, the difference, the exact same valued house on the west side of the street versus the east side of the street. I value them at whatever the sales are, the exact same ones, $1,000 difference in the tax bill based on 161. It's because of referendums. You keep giving them more valuation, more moving it up, and that's what ends up happening.
I know of at least a couple of them recently who have sold that had a finished basement and had made more rooms down there and put in a bar and
Some of
those
them,
are going to sell for $300,000.
well, not every one. Every single townhome that's sold did not have a finished basement or a bar. In fact, most of them, when you listen to the listings, have nothing special about them. It's a matter of, you know, finished basements are an odd thing. If you put in plumbing and you actually file for the permit, I get it. I get the information and I know that it took place and there may be there may be an adjustment for that. But the reality is that finished basements as a whole, if half the people that actually finish their basements actually apply for and get the permits to do so, we're lucky. I don't think half do, I think less than half do. They just get them finished and it gets done. And it's my philosophy that I'm not going to charge more money to an individual that follows the law, that doesn't follow the law. And townhomes are pretty cut and dry. I mean, they're all the same unit. And they're all built by the same builder, and they're all within the same time. And you can see a progression in what the value was from 2010, 2020, 21, and 22, and 23. And those numbers went up and up and up. Now that's just the value. Like I say, it doesn't affect your tax bill. It's not going to raise your taxes. It's just going to say this is where your assessment is. Now, if you wish to file an appeal, the townhome's going to be tough. I mean, what would be your appeal? That my value that I have at 270, and you've got I don't know how many sales there were, like well over 7 or 8 sales just in 2023 that are $330,000.
Yeah, but I've actually lived in Brookside Glen as well, and we
Yeah.
followed the sales of the homes. And to his point, it's because you see a lot of these people who have totally rehabbed the houses. We drive around, we watch them throwing out the garbage and these brand new sinks, totally
Okay.
rehabbing
Sure.
it. And that's why they're getting 300, 310, 312,000. And there's an oddity between a lot of the Brookside Glen homes in terms of taxes. I have a home, and my neighbor right next door in the townhome has about 25 or 50 square feet more. It's a different model.
Right.
And there's about a 16% difference in taxes.
What about assessments?
I'd have to get that information.
See the problem with comparing tax bills and saying, well, my neighbor's paying less in taxes. Well, maybe your neighbor has an exemption that you don't. And when you look at the chart for Brookside Glen townhomes, they're all being assessed at the same level. And if your tax bills are different, then he may have applied for and gotten a different exemption, or had a freeze. And please check to see if you have on your house, that you get all of the exemptions that you should get. Are you 65 years of age, you should be getting a senior exemption. If you are 65 years of age and make less than $65,000 a year, you should get a freeze. If you are disabled and you come get the form and take it to your doctor, that's $4,000 or $3,000? $2,000.
2,000.
$2,000 off the assessed valuation. Every one of those exemptions causes difference, pushes the value out. One of the things that you could possibly look to is, the military exemption, which, eliminates tax bills. I've got more and more every year people that are considered 80% disabled that pay absolutely no tax bill. And that just, once again, spreads that burden out amongst all of us. Yeah,
So my primary reason for coming.
There's 107 sales in the townhomes.
107 sales in the town.
In all townhomes.
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry, yes?
So I wanted to learn more about how to use your web app. What is it? Office of the Assessor, Frankfort Township.
Frankfort Township, yes.
Yeah, property search.
Yeah, okay, so
I can't even find my own home using the
Let's try.
address in place.
Let's try it right here. Let's go to Frankfort Assessor. No, you put your street number. Okay, go back to the beginning.
Yeah, let me go back to the, okay, hold on, let me take this pin out.
Get rid of the pin. Now,
What's the street number?
what is your street number? What is the number of your house?
17720.
17720?
720. Okay. Hit search.
That's what I'm gonna do right now. So maybe we don't have that. 17.
I found it with my parcel number.
Yeah, what's your personal number?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was at home.
What's?
Well, hold on. We can look up on our system here. Can you go to?
Yeah, I'll go to Ames. What,
You go to the village website, you can pull it up quickly.
well, I can do it by, what's the last name?
Where do you live? Is it a new house?
Maybe it's,
Well,
maybe.
my last name?
Yeah.
Chase, C-H-A-C-E. And I just moved in December last year.
C-H-A-C-E.
CH.
The other question I had is how do you find, you gotta find neighbors who have comparable home values
Yes.
to compare. And so if I don't know their
Well-
parcel number, I need.
What's
No. Yeah, there's actually a thing on there when
Yeah.
you pull up your thing and you go
Yeah.
recent sales, and it'll show you all of the sales. So it'll show you what sales that we're doing.
Yeah, his name is not, if he had a recent sale from last
When was your
year, we would have had it.
This
Maybe
last
it's not.
December.
Last December?
Yeah, we would have, it would be in here.
I mean, the database is pretty full. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish you'd have called the office, because I could have probably done it a lot better at the office to actually investigate
Yeah.
a specific.
Here.
Um,
I go to county.
Yes,
Got
we'll
a
look at
question about assessments.
Yeah.
And people that bought houses above the market value, is that going to affect your assessment if you've been there for 23 years?
Well, yeah, it's just an indicator of value. A sale is an indicator of value. It tells me that that house is selling for, that if you were to post your house, that most likely you would sell for that. Now, I don't know what's inside your house. I don't go and look in your windows. Government is not meant to do that. There's much less government. We just measured the outside to do square footage. And it's a general, this is an assessment, it's not an appraisal, it's a mass appraisal. So we're looking at the mass amount of homes. Now, I can't stress enough that it's valuation, and your value is going to continue to go up. And as this market balloons and pops, and that number comes across on the next 4 years and it's minus 8%. The county's not even pulling up.
Yeah, I'm not even pulling your name up in the Will County real estate screen. Is the house in your name?
I don't know if anybody else knows, like 67th Avenue, it goes right in next to Oak Park, how do I say, 177th and 179th. towards downtown Tinley Park Village? Maybe I'm wrong.
It's Cook County.
All right.
You're not even in Will County, it's Cook County. That's why it's not coming up, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it should,
I was like, wait a
every
minute.
number should come up in here. We have all of the things out there. Everything that we do in our office is absolutely transparent. It is there and for the looking at.
Unless it's new construction and you're like on a corner where you have two addresses, that could be an issue. Where we might have to straighten it out because they still have you under both addresses. That's the only time.
Right, and whether or not your developer is split, which doesn't seem to
And a
happen
split
sometimes.
too, yeah.
Yes.
So I got a question. To get back to what this gentleman was asking, what he was referring to,
Yeah.
he had mentioned that his house perhaps doesn't have all the upgrades compared to gentleman across the street that changed everything in his house.
Sure.
Maybe did $100,000 in upgrades, granite, countertops, new
Yeah.
equipment, blah, blah, blah. Would his house be assessed at the same value as the other gentleman's?
Yeah, I don't know what they've done in their house. It's what sales are, and I don't know whether or not you've done it in your house.
Right, no, I
So I
understand
mean,
that. That's what I'm
it's sort
saying.
of like, and it does afford some ability for you to come in when we meet to talk about it and say, well, this is what my house looks like and this is why it's this way. And it may sway me to say, all right, fine, you've never done any upgrades, you got avocado, appliances, and that's, 15-year-old this. That I may say, here, you know what, that's worth $1 a square foot or $1.25 a square foot and bring you down. But the idea that, the entire market is selling what it is, and I can look at the photos on these houses that sell, and there's nothing special about them. There's literally nothing special. It's not like they've done any specific work. It's not, you build the Taj Mahal in your house, and you file in a permit. We got a guy in Frankfort put in one of those endless pools in his basement. And yeah, guess what? I'm going to have to value that. I'm going to have to put some value, because when you go to sell your house, that's going to translate into more value. And that's my job, is to say, listen, I need to make it fair so that you and you and you are paying their shared burden in relation to each other. And that's what I do. And I'm open. We can have conversations about this. You can come to my office. Now's a little bit tight. This is the actual appeal season. I am hesitant to sit down with you, because if we don't agree, let's say we wait until September 6th, and you come into my office and you say, well, I think my assessment is this. And I say, well, no, I've got all of these sales that are at this level, and where you're at and where your relation is. Well, I need you to file an appeal then. Well, I don't have enough time to file an appeal. Well, you do now. Now file an appeal. And at that point, when that appeal gets to me, it should have the information on why you think your house is worth less. And then I make the determination at that point, hey, okay, does he get a reduction? Does he not get a reduction? Because I'm not there fighting to make more money for a taxing body. I'm there fighting to make sure that all of you that don't get reductions don't get increased tax bills based upon faulty information. That we all pay what, the part of this. Yes?
Okay, so we're in Brookside 1, 2.
Yeah.
And the new revised assessment has our house at an amount that I know we cannot get. I look at prices of houses all the time. So when you say you look it up, you're not just going to see houses like yours. You're going to see every house in Brookside 1.
No, just houses like yours, or then you can expand it to all houses.
So when you go into the property search, it's gonna pull your like. So if you're a one-story, it's gonna pull all the one-story sales in your sub, because if you're gonna appeal, you wanna stay with just one story.
Right.
Yep.
Because there's a part of Brookside Glen that is much more expensive than the older part,
Right.
that are like 100,000 more. And I think that's what our number's based on, because it's like our house isn't worth it.
I would urge you to look first
We have the sales up now.
and look at what the sales are, because the shocking point is those sales are there, and I have the sales. I mean, it's not like in 2008 and 9 when there weren't enough sales to even really generate a market. There are sales, and there are oodles of sales, and the valuation that's been placed upon your homes is a lot less than what the sales have come even in 2023. And don't let me explain it. I can't explain it. The interest rates going up the way they are should cause this to crash. The fact that your monthly nut to pay is $15,000 or $1,500 more a month should cause prices to stabilize and go down. And it's not. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not sitting there going across what sales came in, and I'm not amazed. I'm like, okay. And we have situations where people bought a house in 2018 and used the same photographs to sell it 5 years later, and they're making 30%. They're not even changing the photographs on the listing. So it's not like they're making it any better. It is what it is. And that's at 8% interest. And I'm just, it's a head scratcher.
Supply and demand, there's just not
Right.
enough supply out there.
Well, yeah, but taxes, you think, I mean, I get people that come here from out of state and they see our housings and they're like, you know what? Oh God, that's not a lot for that house. I can just buy this house and I'll buy a bigger house. But then the tax bill comes and they're like, well, wow, that's nothing like the tax bill in my state. And that's what it is. That's what Illinois and we are the highest property tax rate in, well, it's second highest. New Jersey was number one. We vacillate here and there in the country. And that's based upon many things. In our situation, the Illinois government got out of the funding education business and forced the entire valuation upon us as residents. And we went into a term called fluency. Our grade schools and our high school system, if the Illinois legislature in Springfield declares us affluent, that shirks their responsibility for paying for our school system. And that's exactly what they did back in 2000 for Mokina, it was like 98 for 161. They look at the value of the homes. And that's why when we tried to work out unit districts and we were trying to push the idea of, listen, they're closing Lincoln Way North and it's absolutely abysmal. We paid for it. It's literally a building that's going to just fall apart that we owe $500 million on. I said, we have to figure out a way. And some really smart people, smarter than I, came up with the unit district idea and talking about making it a K through 12 and making all of Frankfort Township one school district, keeping Lincoln Way North open, keeping Lincoln Way East, and shifting West and Central to their own school district, and making it K through 12. The problem got unhinged when it came to teacher salaries, the difference between a second grade teacher and a high school physics teacher. But the issue was that actually Central and West fell out of the affluency ranking, and that would force the state of Illinois to pony up the money. And our township funds the major portion of the tax dollars that go to Lincoln Way, that go to 161 and 157C. So I mean, each of these taxing bodies are they are our burden. They are what we have agreed to, and they provide value to our houses. The reason why people move here, number one, they ask why. They moved here because of the school system. And that is what generates the sales. And I'm not, it's property taxes. And believe me, it's, everybody gets that notice, and man, you could just, the anger, palpable, yeah. I can probably say without a doubt there are not many people that have worked harder in this area to, one, explain property taxes, and two, fight against them. Whether it was working against the referendum back for the high schools, we needed one, not two, till now where we knocked on doors talking about the mental health. And how people will look at me and goes, what, are you against mental health? No, I'm against government spending on ambiguity, on them not telling me what this bill is going to cost us. They still don't know. They're still going to decide this. And what are they going to do to solve this national-wide crisis for mental health? What is their plan? Well, we're going to set up a commission. Illinois, is great at setting up commissions. You know what? We're going to get together with a bunch of people and talk about the problem. What are you going to do about it? You're already going to take money out. I can pretty much guarantee that increase in the tax bill is going to cause more of a mental health problem that they're going to solve. Really, I mean seriously, it's just, we are in a situation where you know, and it's like I say, it's save the puppies. We vote on these things. You know, I mean, we passed Amendment 1, workers' rights, and I urge people to read that bill. Don't just vote for it because it says workers' rights. And I'm not going to disagree about the right to work, and maybe they could have termed it that way. My biggest problem with the Amendment 1 that we passed and added to our Constitution was that no law shall be able to infringe upon the collective bargaining agreement for safety, wages, or health of life for our public sector. These are only for public. There's already one for private, that's the federal government. This is just for governmental unions. Now, why do I have a problem with that? Well, because the only law that I can think that limits that issue is PETA. No, it's not that anymore, but PETA. The law that limits taxing bodies from raising their rates. And if the Supreme Court of Illinois decides, you know what, that's unconstitutional, we're back to the days of 1991 where they can raise it up. And it may be the plan, because the major elephant in the room when it comes to Illinois, you know, funding is pension liability. And the problems with pension liability in the state of Illinois is that it's unrealistic what was been promised to people. And yes, a pension is a promise, but the reality is that Illinois could probably shut the doors on every single institution tomorrow, still collect all of the money that it collects, and it doesn't have enough to cover what we owe in pension debt. And what I think is going to happen is that they're going to say, you know what, oh, it's not our problem anymore. We are going to take this in a big bundled ball, and we're going to ship it down to all the taxing bodies and push it to the property tax bill. And at that point, I mean, you know, I don't even begin to shudder what tax bills are going to go to. And they're going to, oh, it's not our problem anymore. It's the taxing bodies that issue these pensions. And I'm not saying that it isn't part of their responsibility. It should be. I mean, you know, there were years that they were doubling people's superintendent salaries, or people that had multiple pensions. I mean, this has been a game in Illinois for, you know, 20 years. But they're going to tax us out of our homes. We will not be able to live here. At one point in the early 90s, taxes were doubling every 7 years. Can you imagine if your tax bill doubled in 7 years? Could you live here? I can't live here. I've already got that, you know, conversation with the wife. What this is costing us to actually be here. And are you angry about property taxes? Yeah, so am I. So am I. I work at Frankfort Township. We don't take that 5%. My budget is basically the same as it was in 2014. Since taking office, I've had 13 years. I've had 3% raises, 3. And I started paying for my insurance, and which means that my take-home pay today is less than it was in 2010. Because I walk this walk and say, listen, property taxes are killing us, and I'm not going to be the cause of it. I had some woman call the office yesterday and say to me, oh, get off your 6-figure throne. I've never made 6 figures here. I made 6 figures when I owned my own business. I've never made it in government. And another funny quip is that last year my kid went into 3rd grade, and we had little signs. Everybody's got little signs. They post them up. And what do you want to be for, you know, growing up? And he wrote, I want to be the assessor. You know what he wrote it this year? Who cares? I don't want to be anything. You know, he doesn't want to be the assessor anymore. And I get it. I mean, listen, there is an anger that is stemming from people about what I do, because they view me as the guy that makes their tax bill. And the reality is I don't make your tax bill. I set the value on your property. And the way that I'll best describe it to you is that we're going to walk into a restaurant, and at the end of the night, you're going to hand me the bill. And I'm going to say, all right, it's this amount of money, you had this, you pay this, and you had this, and you pay this, and you had this. And unfortunately, we don't eat at McDonald's. We eat at Mr. Benny's. We eat at places that cost a lot of money. And our taxing bodies keep raising that every year. And next year, your tax bill's going up 5% plus 1% for Lincoln Way debt obligation, and whatever Will County tax, or Will County mental health is going to be. That is a given. I mean, let's say the village does 3. Let's say, that will limit it a bit, maybe make it a little less. And you guys had an interesting issue happen that I'm afraid is going to occur again, but in a good way next year and a bad way the year following. Tinley Park straddles both Cook and Will County. And there are 2 taxing bodies that affects, the village and the library. Now, if you go back to your tax bills, and if you have your tax bills from 2 years ago, take a look at what the increase was for the library and the village. It was minimal. And why was that? Well, the new assessor was elected in Cook County, and he ramped up some values and made changes, and nobody knew on the Will County side, and all of a sudden, the next year, when they did the reclamation and pushed, all of a sudden that extra value that you didn't pay last year got pushed to this year's tax bill. And wow, man, those tax bills, $1,000 on a $10,000 home. He did the same thing again. He literally went to all of Cook County and jumped, all of it up. And I hope that the people that do the tax bills in Will County, which is the tax anticipation in the clerk's office, know this, so when they value things out, maybe they push it up so that it spreads it over 2 years, because it's going to be the same thing. You're not going to pay anything this year, and the next year it's going to jump up $300 on your village. And that could be. The last time this happened was in Will County about 8 years ago, when somebody in Cook County got the bright idea to make seniors reapply for their senior exemption. It's as if maybe seniors, turned 65 and the next year they might have been 64. So they made them reapply. Except some probably bright political person said, well, seniors vote, and you're going to force them to do this, and they're not going to file, and they're going to lose their exemption, and they're going to be pissed, and they're not going to vote for you. So they held off tax bills. When they held off tax bills, it absolutely zapped you 7 years ago. And it did this year with that same straddle. And it's not just this area, it's every area that borders Cook County. Cook County is an interesting place. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not a fan. Questions? Yes?
Last year my tax bill went up $500.
Yeah.
This year it went up $1,500.
Yeah.
And the new assessment is not quite 10% increase.
Sure.
So what is that going to mean next year's bill?
Once again, that is going to cause the tax rate to go down. The increase to your value is the same as everybody. So let's do a quick explanation of why that is the case and how taxes work. All right. Let's make a really small township. All right. Small. 10 houses. There's just 10 houses and one taxing body, one park. All right. And you're the assessor, and you value all of those houses at $100, okay? $100, and the park, it needs $100 a year to operate. Now, when you add up the value of all those homes, it's $1,000, right? At the end of the year, the treasurer looks at the $100 needed and the $1,000 total assessed value, and it says, what do I need to multiply the $1,000 to make the 100? 10%. So he sets the tax rate at 10%, and you, as the assessor, have each one at 100. The treasurer issues a bill. 100 times 10 equals $10. 10 houses makes $100, covers the $100 bill. Right? 2 years pass, and you discover oil on your property. And now instead of $100, you're the assessor, and you're like, oh, these are selling for $200 a piece. All right, add all those numbers up. 200, 200, 200, you know. Now you're at 2,000. And the levy stayed 100. All right? What tax rate do you have to apply? 0.5%, 0.5. So now you are multiplying that by all of your $200 assessments to generate the $100 or $10 that equals that bill. The exact opposite is true. Everything's radioactive, and now it's only worth $50. And all those 10 houses is $500. What tax rate do you have to generate to equal the $100 levy? 20%. So 500 times 20%. This assessment change does nothing more than change the modifier that's modifying to where you are. And yes, your tax bill went up. Numerous reasons. One, every taxing body on your list took 5%. The debt obligation for Lincoln Way and what we did is another 6%. The straddle difference between what occurred last year and the year after was the extra kick in the butt. I hope that, you know, there's not this, you know, change, because man, it really messes with people that escrow their mortgages, people that are paying into their mortgage amount. But that is that situation. Yeah.
Secondly, in my area, at least a dozen, if not more, fantastic estate homes have been built and are still being built. So wouldn't taxes from those new homes be
Satisfied?
considered,
so
and, you
consider
know,
what?
kind of lower
To
our
cover what is
taxes?
owed as our shared debt. The only way any new construction that is put on, whether it be a business or a house, is if that taxing body decides, am I going to add this on? Am I going to add this to my levy? Or am I going to fold it in to help satisfy it? What do you think they do with it? They add it on. It's like found money. It's like, look, here we go. This is added money. Every time something gets built, I'm getting phone calls from, 15 different taxing bodies. When are you going to add this? What's it going to be? What's the value? Because they want to budget for what they can add to what that budget is this year. And it's not it comes to value. I'm sorry, there's a question down here?
Yeah, so we're in the part of Tinley Park that is part of Cook County.
Oh, yes.
So like, I guess, could you help us?
Unfortunately, Cook County is an absolutely different animal of 1,000 different ways. You would talk to your assessor in this area. His only job is not to value. His only job is to help you file an appeal. That's his only job. My job here, the rest of the state all operates in one specific way. Only that way, and Cook County operates in a different way. And I would hate to speak to but talk to your assessor, and his job is to help you file an appeal. His job is to help you show what's up. Yes, sir.
I live in Brookside Meadow,
Yeah.
in a townhouse, and my question is, why are the majority of the neighborhoods net EAV is one thing, and mine is about 30 grand?
It shouldn't be. If it is,
I've got printouts and everything, it's like.
well, no, that's why you come see me. That's why you set up an appointment and you bring it in. Because if you are in a townhome and your assessment is higher than what goes on, I'll fix that immediately. You won't even have to do anything. I will fix it. The townhomes are cut and dry.
Print the papers, I haven't.
No. You couldn't. Actually, if you want to leave them with me, leave me your phone number. I will call you
I can
tomorrow.
set them up here.
Well, we can just set your period. After the meeting, come talk to you, and we'll take a look.
So I'm a Brookside Glen townhome owner too, so is it even worth it for me to even put an exemption or to file an appeal?
It's not worth it. I mean, exemptions are always worth it.
I'm not a senior, I'm just a regular working person, Is it worth putting an appeal because you said that they're all.
If you are different than all of your neighbors, if your assessed level is different than all of your neighbors, absolutely.
This is mine.
But it shouldn't be.
But like you said, it's pretty cut and dry, and so is it even, is it a waste of time to even file the appeal?
I don't think you'll win. But that doesn't mean, you know, I don't want to stop people from filing appeals, or I don't want to stop people from saying, hey, you know, let's sit down and have a meeting with you and talk about this. Because it's absolutely imperative that we get to the idea of this is what's causing property taxes to go up. Because if we don't, they're going to continue to go up. If we don't get a handle on, gee, you know what? They said they're going to save the puppies, and I need to vote for that. And I know it's going to cost money, but you know what? Let's put the, what are they going to do? That's the important thing, is to pay attention to. I look at what your value is. You can go to our website, look up your house. You can, townhome-wise, you can put in your address or your street name, give you every house on your street. You can go down the list. You know, he's assessed at 270, he's assessed at 270, he's assessed at 270, then you really don't have a case. And I don't want you to waste your time. But I also run the soft appeal. This is an interesting thing, is that in 2012, I decided that I was looking at all these appeals coming back, and they were losing because they didn't understand how to file appeals. It's a 30-day window. It's really hard to put forth a good argument, the nomenclature, how things work. They were putting wrong numbers in wrong columns. And so I instituted what's called the soft appeal. I spend the first 6 months of every year, from January through July or June, setting my numbers that then get put into county. And I've decided to open up that decision to residents. So if you want to, February, March, April, May 1st is when tax bills come out. I'm coming here to my office when tax bills come out. But if any of those months, other than this appeal season, this doesn't, any appeal next year is not going to affect the tax bill you're going to get, but you would want to meet with me there. You bring to me anything you want to discuss. You discuss the interior of your house, you want to bring me a list of photos on what you think the, why your house is not, the value that I have on it, because you've got avocado, harvest gold, blah, blah, this, and everything's falling apart. Show me a crack in your sidewalk and I'm not, but anything, realistic, I will then have the ability, before I put my numbers in, before I give them to county, to say, hey, this is what it is. And the difference between then and now is that's just completely based on my opinion. Anything that I do now, after my numbers are turned in, has to have some basis in fact. So this gentleman comes to me and he shows me that he's higher assessed than every other townhome of his type. I can put together a spreadsheet that I can show the Board of Review that would give them that. That is not just an opinion, that is somewhat I can factually do. And I'm always open. There is not an assessor within, in Will County that isn't more accessible and hasn't met with more people. I've met with 2,000 plus, and she's got close to 3,000 now. But it's about understanding how taxes work. It's about combating what causes taxes going up. And that means actually electing people that put them into positions that maybe they're not as apt to throw down for 5% when it's offered to them. Government that funds itself to what is needed, not as much as they can get. So, any other questions? Yeah.
So if I'm going to pull the assessments for my neighbors, do I have to pull like units?
Yes.
And square footage?
The closer the square footage, the better. I mean, you start getting into like 500 or 600 square feet more. Sometimes the price per square foot and that goes down just on buildable and what sales goes. The closer the square footage, the closer the proximity, the more that is an apt use of what it is.
Right, because I know that our square footage, being in the middle, is less than other units. Because even our deck size is a 10 by 10, everyone else has a 12 by 12.
Okay.
So if I look at square.
If you're square, I mean, it's all priced by square foot. I mean, if they're all the same square foot, your assessment should be lower than theirs too.
I don't think so.
It's not.
So I'll pull the, I'll pull.
The square footage of your unit is less?
Yes, by about 50 feet. There are two different models made by Crane
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the
Which
townhomes.
Which townhomes?
Three.
Which
The ones
town?
off of the Brookside off of 88th Avenue and 191st.
So I think all the townhomes are together. I mean, I only pulled up one neighborhood.
3 or 4.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, but they would be under a different side. You would have
Yeah,
different
yeah, yeah.
square footage. Yeah, any data you can bring as far
Are
as
you a
square footage.
two-story, one-story?
And that's the first thing that I'm gonna ask all of you to do. Everybody here, when the first thing that they're going to do when they go to our website is to look at their house and look at their sketch. And make sure that the sketch that I have listed on Par for You is what your home looks like. Just pull up our assessor website. And I'm going to show that, look at my house. All right. Go to 19403.
I don't know right now if the house is over 11 and.
Search. Kevin Ave. 044. This is my house. This is my sketch. Down here is the sketch of what I have on my house. Scroll down a little more. This is the sale date. Bought in 2012 for $300,000. Click on there. View some recent sales in the neighborhood. That will give you recent,
Three-step branches.
all the three-step branches. If you want to expand it, you can expand it to more valuations of what's out there.
You can click all styles in the neighborhood, and then that will give you everything, but then that's going outside of your style.
Right. Yes.
Does it show on here too if I'm getting a senior discount?
No. What you're going to do is you're going to take your PIN number, you're going to go to willcountytreasurer.com, and you're going to pull out your tax bill. And on your tax bill, you're going to look under exemptions. You're going to have $6,000 for your homeowner's exemption. You're going to have $5,000 for a senior. You only need to apply for the senior once. You have to apply for the senior freeze every year, and that's $65,000 and under $65,000. Yes?
Now, does the board of review, does they do this for you? Like if you file appeal to the board of review,
No.
they require you?
Board of Review has made this packet. They don't make it easy for you. It's not, I mean, it's not hard. If you look at it, the names are a little bit, you have to figure out what the names are. If you want to file an appeal and you have questions about anything that's on here, you can call my office. We will tell you what it is. But, as far as finding comps and whatever, those are the comps that you're going to probably try to want to use for sales. If you're looking at homes that are similar to yours, look around your neighborhood. Just instead of putting in a street number, put just your street name, and it'll list every house that's on your street by number. And you can go through and look at all of your neighbors and say, this is what they are, and then you calculate the square footage by what the assessed value is. From our website, get you a price per square foot, write it down. Go to the next one, write it down, write it down. And that should give you an indication of where your value is in relation to your neighbors. And if there's a problem, like I say, you come to me with 2 lower and 7 or 8 above, I'm less apt to make a change at that point. Maybe the 2 below need to come up, not the 7 above. But number 1, I want your sketch correct, because to compare houses, there's this has been since the beginning of time. People have been putting all of this data in. People that I don't know, people that have long been deceased, people that and I don't frankly have the budget to go out and remeasure every single house. It would take years and years and years. It wouldn't take up all of the data, everything that we can do. Yes, sir.
I've got a crazy question.
4.
This
The answer is
probably
always
has
4.
perplexed other people. So when we look at the assessed value, it's usually 1/3, right?
1/3 of market.
So
Yeah.
why do they do that? Why do they do that instead of just saying, this is what the value is?
Because it
How
makes
does
it
that
confusing.
translate into the formula?
Because it makes it confusing. Because it's not. Why does it do it? Because
Right.
it makes it confusing.
Just to do that?
Why do tax bills come out 3 days after local elections?
Well, of course, right.
Because of the way after the elections.
Okay.
Why is it in arrears?
Why are tax bills a year in arrears? Why on earth is it that taxing bodies set their levies in November and December. It's not. It's not meant
To be people friendly.
This could be a lot less confusing, and I've actually lobbied for it to be a lot less confusing. But the real problem is that everybody tends to think that the reason our tax bills are so high is that the value of our homes is so high, and that's not the case. The reason our tax bills are so high is that the levy from the taxing bodies is so high.
So we need to control those budgets within the taxing bodies.
Every year, every taxing body has every right to want to do one of two things. Three things. They can lower their levy, they can keep it the same, or they can raise it. And the only limit to what they raise it is P-top, that number that's up there. And I'm afraid that might go. I truly am. I think that is, the push of where our legislature is going to move this to. And at that point, I think we're in some serious trouble in the state of Illinois. So, property taxes. Question? Yes?
Okay, I got a letter, I don't know, from a law firm saying that my tax increase has gone up 16% in 5 years, and they want $400. I don't know.
I'm gonna speak to lawyers for appeals. I don't dislike them. What I think, though, is that in your situation, it would be most beneficial to hire lawyers that are going to work if they win, get paid if they actually win something. Guys that are requesting dollars up front, you pay somebody $400 and you're not going to win, and you've now lost $400. I would, I'm not, what do you say, the last 3 years? I mean,
5 years has gone up 16%.
yeah, well, it has. But I mean, that has nothing to do with the valuation placed on your house. That has to do with taxing bodies. And lowering you doesn't mean that, the taxing body gets less money. It just means that you're taking your burden and spreading it on everybody else. And I'm not against, even if that guy with the $400 brings forth a case that needs to get lowered, I'm going to lower it. I mean, they could have easily just come to me and had that sit down and said, this is where you are, price per square foot, and we would have given them that. Rather than spending $400 or spending $500, or there was one floating around at $700. I'm like, man, maybe I should quit my job and just do appeals, because I can make a heck of a lot more money than I'm doing here.
Even if you don't win. Even if you don't win.
Even if you don't win, $700. Okay. We had a situation a couple of years ago where somebody was doing that, and the guy came into the office and he goes, I want to know the results of my appeal, and we couldn't find one. And he was paying money, he was collecting money, and and taking all these things, and never filed the appeals, never did anything, just collected the money. That's why, hey, you know what? Be smart. Like when you're paying a contractor, you don't pay him till the deal's done. And if he's a property tax appeal worth his salt that he's going to win, he's going to look at your case first and say, you got a case, I will work for half the money, or I'll work for 25% of the money. I'm not going to work for $400 up front. Yes?
So I filed a soft appeal.
Yeah.
Do you get any notice back from that soft appeal, or is that just something internal?
Generally, if you win, I give you a call. And try to give you a call if you lose. Okay. Did you file the soft appeal?
I filed the soft appeal. I think I dropped it off with the guy named.
This year?
Yeah, this year. I actually met
So
somebody within our office.
this year your notification was the assessment notice, that you got.
So I mean, and one thing I noticed in this is, so mine really didn't change. It went down like 0.04% or something. So
Okay,
mine
yes.
held flat. My square footage rate for the last 2 years was 10-20% more than what my neighbors were.
And we lowered it.
No, well, it basically stayed the same.
But everybody else went up 9%.
Well, like 20%. So I mean, my neighbors could come attack me right now, I think. But I don't know if it was caused by me or not. I'm in Brookside, Meadows as well, not in the condo.
9.7. Everybody went up 9.8. But we probably had you at a higher price per square foot. So your notice came to you where I gave you that reduction on the soft appeal that you went and did for, and
Mine did not go up this year.
didn't go up at all. Yeah, so I mean, so basically, you negated that. You were higher by 10%, I lowered you, and then it came back up, so you stayed even. So now you're gonna enjoy the benefit of a tax bill with a lower tax rate applied to you next year. But that meant you were overpaying the year before. And that's what I try to fix. So I try to make it fair. And so it's a good, thank you very much for saying that it actually worked.
Yeah.
I just soft appeal and it didn't work, but it does.
What's the difference?
The soft appeal occurs between February and June, and it's something that I developed. And interestingly enough, like I said, I did it because people were losing out on their appeals at a pretty steady clip, and it was because they weren't using the right numbers. And I thought to myself, my God, I have to bring them in. I sent out cards to everybody. We publish it in the Frankfort Township newsletter that gets sent to everybody. I say, come in, let's do the soft appeal, let's talk about this. And I get this notice from the state of Illinois, and it says, wow, that's a really neat idea. And they gave me what's called the Mighty Message Award. It's just common sense, mind you. I think it's just common sense. I don't want to, I mean, I got to go to Springfield and they gave me an award, and what a great idea this is. I'm like, everybody should be doing this. And guess what? Most of the assessors now do it because it only makes sense to include you in what the valuation is. Give you the opportunity to walk in and say, hey, Joe, why do you have my house assessed at this? And I'll be like, okay, why do I have you assessed it? I pull up the screen. I show you all of the houses. Sorry, hopefully I helped.
Yes, thank you.
Have a wonderful day. I want to be that helpful person. I want to explain to you why property taxes are going up, so that maybe when you actually come to a situation where you can say, do I need to save the puppies? Are those puppies actually needing to be saved? And do you want to spend that money to save said puppies? You know, who doesn't love puppies? I love puppies. But I mean, I can't, you know, I mean, it's a situation that we're all in. So, yes?
I'll say just on that, if you guys look to do it, I think it was Matt was the guy's name in your office.
Matt actually no longer works for me. He went to law school, graduated, and is now a lawyer.
They were great.
He's fantastic. He's, I miss him.
Yeah, I showed up and they stepped me through the process. There was a couple things on the forms that dates were wrong. There was a couple dates that said 2023 assessment.
Oh, yeah.
It was 22 last year on the soft appeal, but I have to say, between calling in and doing that, they were very helpful.
We try to print off all these forms, and I don't want to blow my budget by, the form doesn't remain, it just remains the same, so the date just different, and it's an internal form. It's not mine, it's not set for public viewing, it's just for us. And I don't want to, you know, throw away forms just because the date reads something different. So I'm sorry, we just wanted to save money, that's all.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
my point was they were very helpful. Call,
We
they
try.
were great.
I had no fence, no basement done. Still it's kept going up. And now it's like tax is more than mortgage itself.
Oh God, yeah, oh, absolutely, and it's just getting worse.
Just mind-boggling.
And the sales keep going up. I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I did talk to a real estate guy, and he told me,
You know, if everybody's sales are going up 20%, it doesn't do
right, but the thing is that why are they still going up? The actual mortgage payment every month is going up. And that means these people are spending this disposable income. And I talked to a real estate guy, and he said, well, most people have the feeling they're going to drop the interest rates. And I don't know if these people are just young and they don't realize that, you know, 3% is not a normal interest rate. Never has been, never will be. I mean, wasn't it Volcker, we have like 20% back in the day. I mean, we could go up from 7 to 14. And I mean, you may never see 3% again. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, when my wife and I have the conversation about, you know, maybe we have to move, maybe taxes are becoming unreasonable, that I say we have to enter into the conclusion that I refinance my house at 2 3/4. And, you know, I can't imagine what my payments would be if I go to sell my house. But thankfully, I'd be able, I mean, I bought my house for $300,000 in 2012. And, you know, my valuation now is $470. You know, I mean, Do I think I get that? Probably. My neighbor down the house in a little split level just sold for 5. And I'm like, she was a realtor, and Beth Kane. She's a wonderful woman. She moved to Florida to go sell real estate down there. And she listed her house, and I called her up and I said, do you really think you're going to get that? I'm the assessor, and I'm asking her, do you really think what you're going to get what you listed for? And she goes, I already have it sold, Joe. I was floored. I'm like, oh, this is madness. These increased prices are indicators of a bubble, and it's going to pop, and values are going to go down, and tax rates are going to just go up to cover what the levy is. Yes, any other questions? Yes?
I just hear the statement, okay, I live in Brookside Glen.
Yeah.
I went to vote, it was 3 o'clock on election day. I was the first person there. I don't understand why these people don't get out to vote people like you and the mayor in.
I knocked on 1,000, we as a group, through Mokina, through Frankfort, through Tinley Park, knocked on thousands of doors. I handed out literature about this. I got the door shoved in my face. I don't want to talk about property taxes. And to be honest with you, the most satisfying part of all of that was one of the guys that I know shoved the door in my face was one of the first people to come and talk to my office about that notice. And I'm like, oh, you remember, right? Remember I was giving you that pamphlet about this, that you didn't want to talk about property taxes, right before an election? Okay, whatever. I mean, I still looked at him, and unfortunately, or fortunately for him, he did have a reason to come down, and I brought him down. Even though he did that to me, my job is to make this fair, and even if I don't, for whatever reason, even if I hated you, I would still bring you down, okay? I mean, it is what you are in relation. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Can I go home? Kids' first day of school? Who cares? Who is this? What do I want to be? Or, who knows? Okay, yeah, whatever. You wanted to be the assessor. Now daddy's job is not what it used to be. So thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunity to talk. Thank you. And,
thank you very much for taking the time out to be here. I want to thank Trustee Mike Mueller. Came in a couple minutes after we started. He wasn't here at the beginning. So again, thank you. I hope everyone learned something. I hope you're bothering Joe to keep calling him to get on his calendar so he can help you. Put him to task.